Well, thank you so much for staying with us. We've been looking at the allegations made by the president of Niger, accusing Nigeria of colluding with France to destabilize his country. Nigeria has responded to that, calling it baseless and a figment of imagination. Other people have, ECOWAS has also responded to that. But we've been having that conversation with the General Secretary of the West African Civil Society Forum, James Ugochukwu. He's joining us live from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ugochukwu, I just wanted to expand the conversation to what you said earlier. I just wanted us to look at it holistically, the idea of imperialism on the continent, the foreign influence, on the continent, because it would seem as though that is also playing a role in ECOWAS' ability to resolve this crisis.
Yes, as you can see, as I mentioned Niger earlier, apart from the French military base in Agadez and Niamey, we have U.S. military bases in these two cities in Niger, not to talk of other West African countries. Now, as we speak now, Russians are coming to the same place, Burkina Faso, Mali, and all that, helping them to the name of fighting terrorism. Now, the question is, how long will African leaders know that their problem is their problem? During the ECOMOG crisis in Liberia and Sierra Leone and all that, West Africa was able to tackle their own problem, restore democracy in all these places. So if you can do that in the early 90s, what stops us from doing the same thing now? But a situation where we are removing one colonial master and bringing another one in the name of helping you to fight insecurity and all that shows that we are not putting on our thinking cap and we are not solving any problem. So as it is now, there's a new scramble for Africa. The Asians are here. The West are still jittery if they can continue getting what they are getting, or they are about to be displaced by the Asian. So the ECOWAS leadership should put on their thinking cap and ensure that they have their own terms and conditions in dealing with all these foreign powers. We should know that, okay, these people, first of all, they came and shared the region into countries, Anglophone, Francophone, Lusophone, and all that. So it's the high time we should be looking at ECOWAS interests of people of West Africa. As we speak, the same people that colonized us are the ones that made it very stringent for us to go to their country. You can see how many young people from West African origin crossing the Sahara Desert and getting drowned in Mediterranean and trying to get to Europe and all that. So by the time you know that you have all this in that the people from the West, East, and the rest of the world are coming to have, then you define the terms of engagement, the operating procedure for all this. How do we engage with you in a way that will better the interests of our people? And that is what the people in these AES have done. They say, okay, we don't want France to be mining our mineral resources. Okay, as they have Russia now, what has Russia contributed, or what terms and conditions are they relating with Russia? So we are living in 21st century where any nation in the world can actually define the policy of how they manage their resources, their human capital, and the rest of them. So the ECOWAS head of state should be very mindful and be very conscious of this new scramble for Africa, and of course define the terms of engagement with these people.
And that's even broader than ECOWAS. It's even an AU conversation. But I wanted to ask you why we haven't seen that level of integration in Africa. I mean, look at the AFCFTA. I'm not sure how much trading is going on, on that platform compared to the AGOA. We do more trading, and even just with other countries. What do you think is standing in the way of Africa's integration?
I think it's policy somersault and policy implementation laziness on the part of African leaders. Of course, a situation where you have African leaders that go to any other part of the world to talk about African interests, except Africa, cause to question if they actually really want to solve any problem. Because the question you will ask yourself is that, why should we have Africa-Asian Summit in Africa? You want to come and exploit natural resources, and I will be the one that would go to your country to discuss that. So until Africa start bringing these people to the continent, the respect for us is not going to go anywhere. And of course, until the African leaders start collaborating with each other, regional blocs, SADC, ISAC, ECOWAS, and the rest of them coming together to look at all these treaties, the ACTA, the AGOA agreement, and all that in their own enclave, and decide, looking at it deeply, say, what do we need to gain in this agreement? What do we need to lose? If we do this, what are we going to get? If we don't do this, what are we going to lose? And of course, giving themselves a work plan, a timeline for implementation of all this, giving every member state marching order to execute a particular treaty that is being given. It's not enough to just sign it in the AU headquarters, and it will not take, you will go back and it will take you several years to domesticate it. There should be a timeline of action that will make us to collaborate. We all Africans, we are black Africans, we understand ourselves better, so we should be able to cooperate in anything we are doing without having external influence to tell us what we need to do at any particular time. So policy implementation laziness should be done away with as we are heading to a new year, starting from next year. And of course, there should be oversight between the states involved in all this treaty. That's the only way we can cooperate. As we speak now, there's nothing that stops Africa from having a common currency. But as we speak now, even the regional bloc can't even afford to have a common currency. ECO has been there since God knows when. They have been planning to have that, and it has not happened up till now. But when did it take the European Union to come together and have euro that is competing strongly with other currency in the world? So these are the issues that we're talking about. So the African leaders need to sit up and, of course, know that there are serious challenges on their hand. In the whole world now, Africans are the highest number of migrants to other Western world. All this kind of trend need to be reversed if we put our thinking on and do the needful.
And just seeing how weak some of these currencies in Africa are against the dollar and the pound, one would have thought that they would have come together, to have a common currency that is strong against these foreign currencies. But I also wanted to talk about the idea. I think you were talking about it earlier. I think we're talking about the integration, and then I want to talk about how the reason most people would say that, especially for example, the base. Why in Niger, if a country like Niger will allow a base from the U.S. in its country, is the financial implication. How Africa is always seeking for finance outside of its continent. And I wanted to ask you why it's difficult for Africa to, from your own experience, why you think it's difficult for Africa, to finance itself, why we always have to go cap in hand for loans here and there all around the world.
Well, the reason is, there are many reasons for that. One is by the time you have leaders that don't understand how international politics works or how international economy works, it becomes a very big problem. And this causes to the reason why most of them go to borrow money. It's a case of you have the potential of earning what you are going to borrow. That is the situation Africa has been facing. And of course, most of this loan they go to borrow comes with a very stringent terms that they will tell you, okay, you are going to borrow this money for so years, and you'll be paying little interest and all that. It sounds very good. You borrow $5 billion and you have 7 years to pay it, and you have 1 year moratorium and all that. So they get sucked in all these debts year by year, borrowing from different countries, from different world bodies, and some of these institutions like IMF and the World Bank and all that. The question you keep asking yourself is, okay, why should Africa be looking towards these external borrowers when you have natural resources that you can actually exploit and manage very well. But the question is that you see that the issue is that when you see them borrowing this money, most of this money are not even being used for the purpose of which it was borrowed for. Some of these heads of states are corrupt. They will borrow the money, they will use it to live large, use the money and even take it back to the country that they borrowed the money from to invest in real estate and even some companies and all that. So it's high time that African people start looking at the kind of leadership that the kind of leaders they put in leadership position. They should be looking at leaders that can look inward and harness the natural and human resources that are there, because we are endowed with all this, and that is the reason you see that the rest of the world can't leave us alone. If Africa doesn't have anything to offer, I won't be seeing all these foreigners in Africa trying to do business, trying to establish this and establish that. And of course, if you look at the terms and conditions of the business they do in Africa, it's exploitative. Very, very exploitative, because the question you ask yourself is that why is it that you can't have chocolate factory in Africa, but we transport or we export cocoa from Africa to the rest of the world. So you export a bag of cocoa for a certain amount and you bring one piece of chocolate that is equivalent to the 3 bags of cocoa. So it shows you that we have leaders that are not putting in their thinking cap or are too lazy to do all this. So I think African leaders should look how they can harness their natural resources, especially human resources. As we speak, Africa has the highest number of youth demography, of which if it is well harnessed, of course, Africa in the next 50 years, next 50, 100 years will be completely independent of anybody. They will be the one borrowing others even. Have the best climate, to have the best natural condition for anything to thrive.
All right, so I want to sort of go back to the Nigeria-Niger situation or development. How should, because we know that as this is ongoing, citizens of both countries, are following this development keenly. How should this be handled in a way that it doesn't begin to result in xenophobic attacks in these countries?
Well, I don't see that happening. Like as I told you earlier, Niger is bordered by seven Nigerian states in the north: Sokoto, Kebbi, Katsina. We have Kano. We have Borno. We have Jigawa. So we have Yobe. These are the states that are bordering Niger Republic. And as we speak, these people have been existing for several years, even before the European came to Nigeria. So I don't see that happening. For instance, now the president of Nigeria is from the south, of which, if the people in cabinet don't handle the issue very well, the people in the north may start seeing it as if the president from the south is trying to incite them against their brother. But I love what the National Security Advisor did, Nuhu Ribadu. He replied the same accusation from Niger in Hausa language, because the Tiani, he spoke Hausa addressing BBC Hausa, or was it BBC Hausa? I've forgotten the media house that made that interview. But Nuhu Ribadu too replied in the same Hausa. And in that particular region and that particular block, people listen to BBC Hausa a lot. So it's accusation and clarification, so everybody will know exactly where it lies. And the National Orientation Agency need to step up to educate the people within this area, because in the whole of that area, from the border town up to Niger Republic, all the transmission, all the media houses that in Nigeria, they get to listen to the information. And of course, more importantly, there should be a handshake across to Niger to ensure that all these issues are put to rest. Of course, like the Tichani actually accused Nigeria of sponsoring terrorism, and they mentioned some names of people that are even aiding the terrorism and all that. So National Security Advisor, the NSA, the NIA and all that, they should swing into action and look deeply into this accusation beyond getting angry that Niger is accusing them. So they should look into all these names that have been mentioned all these locations that have been mentioned, they should be able to find out if they actually exist, and if Niger is just, misinterpreting what has nothing to do with Nigeria as a creation of Nigeria. So these are the issues that I think need to be done to avoid this likable xenophobic attack, which will not happen, because xenophobia is when you have a different tribe from another tribe. The people from these 7 states will speak in Nigeria that borders Nigeria. They speak the same language, they practice the same religion, they have the same culture, so to say. In fact, they intermarry. Most Nigerian elites, they have houses in Niger, just as some Nigerians still have houses in Nigeria. So I don't see that happening. Remember when...
and I get your optimism, but when such a dangerous rhetoric flows from the head, one can only imagine the interpretation that will be gotten by citizens. We remember one of the cases of xenophobic attacks in South Africa. Our understanding was it was one of the local kings there who had made a statement that had incited South Africans against some foreigners, and we saw how that played out. And so I wonder if we should share your optimism. But in terms of further conversations and further diplomatic relations, as we begin to wind out this conversation, what should ECOWAS be doing now? Because the Sahel states have rejected the 6 months extension by ECOWAS.
Yes, what the Sahel states should be doing now is that, what ECOWAS should be doing now, is that we have key ECOWAS statesmen, other statesmen that are well respected across the region. So I think ECOWAS should move faster than they are moving now, to ensure that they send these delegations to these Sahel states. I remember during the beginning of the queue, when they took over government, I think we had delegation from Nigeria consisting of Absalam Abubakar, former Nigerian military head of state, Sultan Abubakar, Sultan of Sokoto, and one other person. So we still have other statements like this that still command respect across the region. So as a matter of fact, ECOWAS should, beyond using their own diplomats or ambassadors, to engage some of these ECOWAS other statements that some of these military head of state will listen to, because every head of state will still have somebody that they will listen to. And of course, they should come clear to say, okay, this is what we are putting on the table. What do you want us to do as ECOWAS so that you don't move out of the bloc? What are we not doing wrong? We are all brothers. How can we resolve this impasse? You can't just go because we have some little squabbles, and will sever the ties we've been enjoying for the past 50 years. So the way to go is to deploy other statements to talk to this alliance of Sahel states in conjunction with other ambassadors.
General Secretary, the West African Civil Society Forum, James Ugochukwu, thank you so much for your time. Such wonderful analysis coming from you there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, so we had told you earlier we were going to review the year, especially under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but we've been trying to connect with our guest for the last 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but the network challenges. He's supposed to join us via Zoom. We seem to be having connection challenges, so we will bring you that conversation hopefully next week. But we'll take a break now, and then when I return, we'll be wrapping up the show. Stay with us.